some people that were throwing darts, frankly, and but again, there's every CBA that I've ever seen, that I've ever been involved in, there's always been some criticism that we didn't get enough, or it wasn't fair, or people weren't involved who should have been involved. We do the best we can, and the best processes are where you have the most time to really do good organizing, because it's really fundamentally about that. The thing about what we're talking about is community benefits. What we're really talking about is the goals of development, is to really change the nature of development to project by project, let's get things built in the ground, to what do we want to win for communities. So the first part of institutionalizing CBAs is saying we want 100,000 good middle class jobs, we want 10,000 affordable housing units, we want to reduce the ozone layer in the city by X percentage. So we want goals. We want these goals, and we want our development to help us reach these goals. Then the second part is, okay, what substantively can we institutionalize through policy? So the jobs part, the affordable housing part, and that's really where inclusionary zoning comes in, or LEED standards, as we were talking about, or living wage requirements, or local hiring requirements, or there's a list of things that we can adopt for all subsidized projects, all projects of a certain size. And then there's process, and how do we want to open up the development process? And that's partly looking at where we start, and maybe we want to get more input earlier on. Maybe we want to require the developer to have to do some community meetings earlier on. There are ways to open up the process that I think can be really helpful. But it's thinking it through. But before, you don't have a chance, you don't have a prayer of any of that until you get out of this free market rules framework and get into the the equity principles that John was laying out earlier as kind of the basis for all decisions around development. Now, keep in mind that CBAs is something we made up. It's totally fungible to whatever you want. Military bases would be an ideal place to use CBAs, and in fact, we have been doing some research in California on some closing of some military bases. And the challenge also always is to think about who the decision makers are and how much power do we have over them. To the extent to which military bases close, but the decision making on what to do with the land is local, better chance. If we got the Bush administration deciding what to do with the military bases, we're not going to get living wage jobs and affordable housing and all those things. So better move on to something else.
So with the closing of a base, with a closing of a base, and the city has control of it, they gave it to the mayor, and the mayor is giving it to the developers. How do we fight that, or how do we come into play to be participants in that development of that base, and to make sure that the right things that we want in our community is put on that base, instead of what the government or what the mayor might want as far as one developer or a particular person? How do we do that? What do we do? Thank you
for your patience. Sure. Okay, now, one thing I want to really encourage you is remember that list of comprehensive elements?
Right.
When you're doing a big project, any project, you got to have the research, you got to have the organizing, you got to have, the coalition building, all that stuff. I would say in a big project like that, any major piece of land, our first mantra has got to be competition, competition, competition. Right? So our first organizing might be, the first thing might be, we want a request for proposal process. We want there to be a competitive process, and we want some community benefits to be built in to the RFP so that developers are competing based on, what we want. And then it's a lot easier for us to intervene in a competitive process. And then you have multiple places of intervention after that.